Critics said when he got back to Westminster with this deal, they said that he had just been tinkering around the edges of the UK's major problems with the EU and the way that it's run, that there was nothing in his deal to do with regaining control of the UK's borders, nothing to stop mass migration into the UK, and no repatriation of powers to Westminster. And those have been key issues during this referendum campaign. Nevertheless, though, Pat Cameron said that he had done his absolute best to secure that deal. See what you think.
We're going to fight for our national interest and to reform this organisation, to renegotiate Britain's position within it. I will go to Brussels. I will not take no for an answer.
Are you hopeful of a deal, Prime Minister? So 4:40 in the morning UK, 6:40 in the morning here in Moscow. Let's see. Yeah, well, there's no change. As you can see at the moment, more areas have been counted, more votes come in, but it's still, at the moment, remain behind, 48% to 52%. It's still, though, too close to call. A lot of people are saying, although, as these votes are coming in, more than 80% now counted, a lot of people questioning whether indeed Britain is heading for a Brexit this morning. Geographically, Scotland and London have voted overwhelmingly for Remain, as expected, but England has been leaning heavily towards a Leave. Some of the latest that have come in: East Hertfordshire voted to Leave, Harrow to Remain, Enfield to Remain, Rotherham to Leave, Croydon to Remain, Southampton to Leave, Dumfries and Galloway up to the north to Remain, Stafford in the Midlands to Leave, Kirklees to Leave.
Well, it's extraordinary, really, if you think back 4 months ago when the campaign started and the people for Brexit really were considered the underdogs in all this. And of course, you know, just as the results started to be read out, we had a very lacklustre Nigel Farage.
He looked really downbeat tonight, and so did Boris Johnson for a while. Maybe they're taking heart in what's coming through here now, but of course it's still too close to call, although the feeling is, 20% of the votes to come in isn't going to change a lot. Basically, for the last 3 hours or so, while we've been sitting here, if you just tuned in, the Brexit vote has been ahead at least 1%, but 4 at the moment as it stands. Now, this is real crunch time we're coming into now, the next hour. This is when we're really going to know, the last 20% of the votes are in, we're really going to know where we are. Eventually, the final outcome will be read by the election committee representative in Manchester. Harry Fear, our correspondent there. I voted. Yes, you voted too. I'm not going to say which way. But this has redivided friends, communities, families, husbands, wives over the dinner table, and a lot of people have not been moved in it as well. They basically, no matter what information they've been given on this, a lot of people have stood their ground, they've gone with their head, their heart, whatever. But it's also caused some other ructions as well. It's caused some problems between Prime Minister David Cameron and the former London Mayor Boris Johnson, of course.
Oh, well, Cameron launched the campaign to stay in. Boris, his good friend, chose to leave the Leave campaign. And in a further blow to their friendship, one poll suggested the public believes in Boris more than David when it comes to claims about the EU.
I decided, after a huge amount of heartache, because I did not want to do anything, the last thing I wanted was to go against David Cameron or the government. But after a great deal of heartache, I didn't think there's anything else I could do. I would be advocating vote Leave.
stronger, safer and better off by remaining in a reformed European Union.
In exactly what way this deal returns sovereignty over any field of lawmaking to these houses of parliament?
This deal brings back some welfare powers, it brings back some immigration powers, it brings back some Bail Act powers. We need to stand united, and to keep insisting that the EU is about economics is like saying that the Italian mafia is interested in olive oil and real estate. So let's not walk away from the institutions that help us to win in the world. I believe we will be mad not to take this once in a lifetime chance to walk through that door.
Well, RT UK's Bill Dodd welcomed into our London studio RT America's Ed Schultz. The pair discussed what the vote means for the US and the special relationship between the two countries.
Perhaps now you understand why I've come all the way from the United States. There's a big anxiety over Britain's vote among politicians in the United States. Barack Obama spent 4 days in the UK, and his intervention was fairly blunt. He urged Britain to stay put, stay in the Union. And he wheeled out a few threats to persuade people to think his way. He warned London's prospects of forging a trade deal with America would be a massive blow to the economy.
It is a matter of deep... best when it's helping to lead a strong Europe. It leverages UK power to be part of the European Union. Our focus is in negotiating with a big bloc of the European Union to get a trade agreement done. And UK is going to be in the back of the queue.
While Barack Obama joined the referendum merry-go-round with a UK visit before the vote, the Republican who's after his job is also on his way here right now. So Donald Trump, he can't sway the vote, Ed, but he can certainly stir things up, can't he?
Well, there's two elements here. First of all, on President Obama. President Obama cannot point to one net job that he has created because of any trade agreement, and I find it ironic that he came over here to Britain to tell the British people how to vote on Brexit. Secondly, Donald Trump, this is right up his alley. He's here to stir it up. He's going to be here to push his golf course. He's going to be talking about big business. And no matter how this vote goes, he's going to play great to the British people one way or another. I don't think he'll come over and criticize. Trump, you have to understand, is a big businessman with a big ego. And he wants a fresh start with Great Britain. Trump wants to be able to come over here, be president of the United States, and set the table with the Brits, and he wants it done on his watch.
Well, I just speak for myself. I don't want anybody to even, change their opinion. Personally, I wouldn't do it. I mean, a lot of the migration and a lot of the acceptance of people is because of the European Union. I think that's been a disaster.
Oh, it's been a disaster. Now, understand where Donald Trump comes from. He's a big business guy, and his philosophy is when there's blood in the streets, there's money to be made. So if the Brexit vote goes through and there is a recession, it's going to open up big avenues for big investors to come in and work over the cheap labor. That's how I think it's going to go with Donald Trump. That's where he is.
But then, of course, Britain and America have really lauded this special relationship, haven't they, for many years, for decades. Its benefits have long been called into question, of course, on these shores, but could it cause actually a real fracture if Britain actually does decide to quit the EU? What sort of implications would that be?
There are so many connections between the United States and Britain, Bill. The best ally the country's ever had for both countries. We walk hand in hand, we're shoulder to shoulder. We find a way to find common ground on big crises and big issues. These two countries have done a lot of things together in crisis. So I don't think that this vote is going to change the relationship, change the loyalty, or change the future
coordination and cooperation between the two countries.
So even Trump won't change the relationship anyway. Just remember the fact that really David Cameron wasn't that keen for him to come here in the first place.
Well, Cameron wasn't, but Cameron's the prime minister. He has an obligation to represent the country no matter who the president of the United States is. I think that was somewhat of an overstatement on his part. But I do believe that Donald Trump would be good for business. And I do believe that he would see opportunities and he would, of his personality, say, look at the deal I did with Great Britain. I'm Donald Trump.
Let's listen to what Cameron actually